How's it going? Okay, so we're back. We're going to be doing a quick wired up. This is wired up from the beautiful remains and ruins of the formerly industrialized nexus of the country, Flint, Michigan. Today we're going to be talking about the Newark water crisis, the Flint water crisis, the comparisons between the two, and the updates on what's going on. We're going to be talking about what Newark has to look forward to in a very similar circumstances, and what they have to look forward to afterwards. Of course, right now, it's all projection on what exactly we have to look forward to. But there's been a lot of theories into it, and kind of get into that. So first of all, what happened in Newark? Very similar to Flint. They did, let's just say, everything besides having separate cities, having their city taken over by the state government and having decisions foisted upon them to actually make it so they can't make decisions in a democratic way. So without that, without the confusion over which water system to go to, how expensive it is. So without that, simply, flat out, they had an ailing infrastructure. Their water infrastructure was actually older than ours, believe it or not. A lot of their pipes come from even the 1880s, which is crazy. So we're going to go ahead and get into that. I found this article earlier. I thought it was pretty good. How did we get here? This is a great timeline of what's been going on and where it started. This started all the way back in 2015. It says, while Newark did not have high lead levels in 2015, a close look at the data show lead levels in homes served by the Pequonnock treatment plant were on the rise. Not enough for them to enact, but oh well. The state regulates the Pequonnock and Wanacue, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing those correctly, water systems as one in Newark, even though they're run by different agencies. Take water from different reservoirs and use different water treatment methods. That's interesting. That can cause some confusion. About 12% of 25 samples taken from the Pequonnock area were over the federal limit in 2015, data showed. But when combined with Wanacue samples, they were under the federal threshold. Way to kind of doctor things to not do anything about it. It's okay when it's happening to a couple of poor people. If it starts going citywide, that's when it becomes a problem. So we can go to March 9th of 2016. Newark Public Schools shut off 400 sources of drinking water at 30 school buildings. After finding elevated lead levels at some locations, school officials blamed old lead piping and distributed bottled water while they replaced the pipes and installed filters. Test results showed elevated lead levels in the water dated back to 2010 to 2011 school year. Again, infrastructure. No investment at all. When you hear the words budget cuts from any conservative, this is the type of thing that they're talking about. You think they're talking about welfare and getting welfare queens off. We're getting rid of all this corruption and people just gaining the system. No. They're talking about shit like this. They're like, well, we commodified a necessity. We bilked it for as much money as we can. We'd actually lose out on the profit if we had to rebuild the entire system, even though it's ailing. And if some people get lead poisoning, whatever. June 8th, 2017. Newark exceeds the federal action level for lead. The first time since the 1990s. It's also the first time the state tightens up its testing protocols, requiring large systems like Newark to test 100 homes every 6 months instead of 50 homes every 3 years. Again, we're talking about there were cuts. And they had to come from somewhere. It's expensive to have them repeatedly have to check on this water. If they do it once a year or every 6 months, that's a lot more expensive than 50 homes every 3 years. So essentially, they're testing 200 homes a year, which I don't think that's that unreasonable. I don't think it's unreasonable at all. I mean, what the fuck do I know? December 27th, 2017. Newark again exceeds the federal limit for lead. The city gives the state an inventory of its 18,465 lead service lines, garden hose-sized pipes that connect underground water mains to homes that will be replaced as part of an 8-year program. Some pipes date to the 1880s. Holy shit. February 22nd, 2018. A year and a half ago. In February 22nd email to Newark's top water officials, a city consultant said a preliminary review showed Newark's method of preventing lead from flaking off old plumbing and dissolving into the distribution system has not been effective. The thing that's slightly different from Flint is we increased our corrosion by adding things to treat for bacteria, because we weren't properly treating the river water as river water when we switched over to the Flint River. So there's some difference there. This is literally, their pipes are too fucking old. No one ever did anything about it. No one even bothered to look into, hey, maybe we've got an aging infrastructure and we should do something about it. Think of every single time a bridge has fallen in this country. Usually you can find a bunch of things saying, hey, you should probably replace that bridge or do some work on it. It's going to fall. That's infrastructure. That's infrastructure spending. That's the thing that Flint needs. And needed for years. Decades even. But we didn't get it. Newark didn't get it. And they needed it more than us, to be honest. We helped speed up. I say we. The state made decisions that helped speed up the progress of erosion in our water lines. But Newark, it just happened naturally. And there's nothing they could do about it. Budget cuts. But my taxes. Fucking pay your shit. Giving early signs of system-wide problems. The treatment known as corrosion control used a chemical called sodium silicate, silicate, that was supposed to react with the lead in pipes to form a protective crust. We used, it was something like, TTIs or something like that. We used a different method. But again, it didn't work. So, the Natural Resources Defense Council threatens to sue Newark, and this is April 25th, 2018, and the state over their handling of dangerous levels of lead in the drinking water. The group successfully sued in Flint, Michigan during their lead outbreak. The group also accuses the city of failing to turn over public records related to water treatment. Okay. And here we go with the attempt to sweep it all under the rug. And who the fuck is that? I've seen that guy before. Anyways, Our water is safe. It is our goal to be transparent and keep our residents informed every step of the way. The late Andrea Ediboali, I'm guessing, Newark's director of water and sewer utilities, said at the time. Newark's water meets all federal and state standards. This issue is confined to a limited number of homes with lead service lines. This is the same thing they told us. It was either it wasn't happening, or this is very limited, this is very small, so you don't need to worry about it. Basically gaslighting the shit out of us, telling us that we're the crazy ones for freaking out about this. And this, among something that there's not a huge statewide cover-up for, to justify allowing this to happen. This is just simply, we dropped the ball. We never bothered to fund the efforts to rebuild our infrastructure. And now we're just kind of fucked. Whatever. Newark says a lot of records are missing because the agency once tasked with maintaining the watershed and treating the water dissolved in 2013 amid a corruption scandal involving sweetheart deals and no-show contracts. The city took over those responsibilities in 2013. That's interesting. Remember, Chris Christie was the governor at that time. And if you're wondering why I'm bringing up Chris Christie, literally it says it was statewide. That the city took over everything. Because they had to. June 26, 2018. The NRDC sues Newark and the State Department of Environmental Protection, alleging violations of federal sampling guidelines and failure to properly notify the public as required by law. Shortly after the city exceeds federal lead levels for the third consecutive 6-month monitoring period. I forgot to do a thing real quick. There we go. Anyways. Shortly after the city exceeds federal lead levels for the third consecutive 6-month monitoring period. Okay, I read that already. The 27 Consumer Confidence Report sent to residents in the summer of 2018 detailing the quality of the water. And it stated, "Dear fellow Newark resident, I am pleased to present the water quality report, which confirms that the city of Newark's water is not only safe to use and drink, but that it is some of the best water in the state of New Jersey." That sounds familiar. I gotta fix my camera. It's moving around too much. Okay. There we go. Many of you have heard or read the outrageously false statements about our water, but please know that the quality of our water meets all federal and state standards. The only high lead readings we're taking inside of older, pre-1986 1 and 2 family homes that have lead pipes leading from the city's pure water in these structures. Now that sounds incredibly familiar to me. That's the same thing we were told. Oh, no, this is just in the older houses. Forgetting the fact that we're a city full of poor people when, I don't know, the entire city is full of older houses. So it kind of doesn't fucking matter. Oh yeah, and water tends to travel. It's fluid. It doesn't all go in one place as you direct it. Unless it's a completely closed system. But within that closed system, anything that's in it moves around and gets spread out. Which is why they do things like the boil advisories that still happen. Had one about a month ago. A water main break, and they just said it's called a filtered water boil advisory. Even if your water is filtered, you gotta boil it. because something broke and there might be bacteria in it. Again, by the way. Moving on. October 1st, 2018, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency notifies the state and the city that analysis of Newark's pipes show the Pequonnock treatment plant's corrosion control is no longer effective. Again, outside agency has to come in because they were getting sued and tell the state, tell the government, tell the city, no, you're lying to the people. This is a problem. You have to do something about it. October 3rd, new tests showed Newark's water contains another contaminant, high levels of haloacetic acids, a group of 5 possibly carcinogenic chemicals that are byproducts of the water disinfection process. This is similar to what they used in our water to disinfect it after we switched to the river. This is what eroded the pipes originally. So it looks like they did something similar. It's not the same thing. We used, it's Tetris something or other. I'll have to fucking look it up. But people exposed to elevated levels of haloacetic acids for years are at an increased risk of getting cancer, according to the EPA. No one stepped in. There's no EPA right now, really. They don't step in and do anything. States' rights. So, whatever. Nutley, Bloomfield, and Belleville have also found these contaminants repeatedly in their water. That's funny, 2 of those cities are in Michigan. So I was a little confused for a second there. A little drink of water. October 11th, 2018. Newark announces it will begin distributing 40,000 pure water filters to residents after acknowledging the lead problem is widespread due to failing treatment. By the way, those are the same things we've got, and we've tested them. They do not work. They do not remove lead. I can tell you that, hands down, from personal experience, they do not remove lead. They do not remove copper. They do not remove metals. They're very bad at it. They switched to several different ones, whether it's pure or Brita, and they all failed. Most of the city, by the way, still has the Brita and the pure water filters. Most of us don't know that they don't work. Still having to deal with boiling the water, regardless to everything. We'll get into that further. A draft report by CDM Smith found the treatment meant to prevent lead from leaching into the water from old pipes stopped working because the pipes were too old. That same report points to a key reason why corrosion control failed. The plant decreased pH levels, making the water more acidic and rendering the treatment less effective. Wow. That was probably, like most things, a means to cost save. The acidity levels began fluctuating around 2012 and dropped significantly by 2016, the report said. The report did not conclude when the treatment failed, saying only it stopped working sometime before 2017. Again, reminding you that this started all the way back here. Oh, it always starts with the poor people, doesn't it? But we can ignore them. They're poor. Whatever. November 8th, 2018. Mayor Ras Baraka said it's BS. He deliberately misled residents about the scope of the lead problem. Again, sounds familiar. This is where I say Dane Walling, who was mayor at the time, was a coward. more so than he was complicit. His cowardice made him somewhat complicit. Himself, he was not complicit. He was told by the state to say these things. He had no power to not. That's literally what the Emergency Financial Manager Bill did. It robbed him of all power. He was mayor in name only. Democracy at work. He said after he found out the city's corrosion control treatment was no longer creating a protective coating inside old pipes to prevent lead from dissolving into the water, he knew that this was not an anomaly, that this was not 12, 14, 20 homes that are affected. Okay. November 21st, 2018. We're almost done. Bloomfield announces it too will distribute nationally certified pure water filters to residents. The township reported elevated lead levels in its tap water in 2017 and in the first 6 months of 2018. Belleville and Paquanack Township have also exceeded allowable federal limits for lead in the drinking water. Nutley, which buys Newark water, has not, but the town but the town is on a 3-year testing period. Again, they won't know. They have no idea. They should hurry up and get that tested. But again, costs money. January 10th, 2019. Lead in Newark's drinking water reached the highest level ever recorded in the past 17 years, according to the state. It's the 4th consecutive lead exceedance. The 90th percentile of the samples averaged 47.5 parts per billion, more than 3 times the federal limit. The federal limit is 15 parts per billion. And do you know how much lead is safe to consume? 0. None of it. March 14th, 2019. Newark officially launches its $75 million bond program to remove 18,000 old lead pipes that extend across the city and are causing elevated lead levels in the drinking water. Homeowners will pay no more than $1,000 with 90% of costs covered by the city. The state agrees to give $12 million for the first phase. Sounds all right. We move on. May 7th, 2019. A new corrosion control treatment using orthophosphate is introduced and fed at the plant's rechlorination station in Montclair. The chemical will take 8 months or up to a year to work. I believe this is what we did eventually in Flint. Orthophosphates, that sounds very familiar. Paquanack Township, which also buys Newark water and has elevated lead levels, will not receive the treatment as it is further north than the rechlorination station. The city is working on a separate plan for the township. Always good. No consensus on how you're actually handling the problem, but okay. August 9th, 2019. The EPA sends Newark a letter recommending the city distribute bottled water after alarming tests questioned the effectiveness of filters. What did I tell you? The filters don't fucking work. It's the first time any agency pushes such a drastic action amid the city's now 3-year lead crisis. Newark officials hold a press conference to announce this is August 10th, 2019, troubling results. Filters at 2 or 3 tested homes did not work as expected. Pregnant women and families with young children are urged to use bottled water until we figure out what the hell is going on, Braca said. This is all sounding incredibly familiar. August 11th, 2019, Baraka tells New Jersey Advanced Media the city will begin to distribute bottled water at 4 locations to residents in Pequannock area who have lead service lines. Again, sounds familiar. What's missing? Water drop-off. Because it's not always easy to get water. Some people don't have cars. Again, we're talking about a city with poor people. You got to accommodate them. Governor Snyder ended our water drop-off, and now we don't have it. Still waiting on Whitmer to actually go back and restart that up. We'll get into why. Because a lot of people have a lot of questions about that. We'll get there. August 12th, 2019. Newark begins distribution of more than 70,000 cases of bottled water for residents who live in the Pequannock treatment plant. August 26th, 2019. We're almost there. Essex County Executive Joseph DiVincenzo, Jr., announces a $120 million loan to Newark so it can replace all 18,000 lead service lines in less than 3 years. Now, I'm going to already tell you, that's not going to fucking happen. Less than 3 years? Our estimates have us at 7. And we started 2-3 years ago? Something like that? So we got a long road ahead of us, but we'll get there. Meanwhile, the state says it will sample 225 homes over 3 weeks to find out whether the filters are working. The state will find, of course, again, they are not. I've been here before. We've been here before. We know what's going to happen. The filters aren't going to work. It's going to fall on deaf ears. Next thing I'm going to tell you that they're going to be dealing with is their hot water. And the city will not want to test the hot water. Even though you remember what a hot water heater is. It's a big tub that heats up the water, right? Water goes into it, heats up. All that lead collects at the bottom. So you really have no idea how much lead or how much anything is coming out of your hot water. So how can you say you're lead-free? This is a problem that we dealt with in Flint. We were pressuring the city to allow us to test hot water. They would not allow us to. Still don't. We can only test our water. It has to be in a sink, in a bathroom, or a kitchen. It has to have sat unused for a minimum of 6 hours. That means no toilet flushes, nothing. You have to bring it in, and they send you the results in the mail. But they will not test the hot water, which is a bigger danger. This is how you get people who have gotten, they've gotten rashes all over their body from whatever's in their water, because they don't know. Because they will not allow us to test it. This is all sounding incredibly familiar. The only thing that is missing is the state takeover of the city. I feel like it's going to work in reverse and they're going to end up taking it over. But I can tell you, that plan where they're going to get those pipes fixed in 3 years, 18,000 lead service lines. I don't know how big Newark is, but it doesn't sound possible. Just going to throw that out there. Let's see, New York Times talking about replacing the lead pipes in under 3 years. Weeks into an escalating public health crisis caused by elevated levels of lead in the water, officials announced on Monday a new $120 million plan to expedite the replacement of ancient service pipes in New Jersey's largest city. The new financing will allow the city to replace 18,000 buried lead service lines in the next 24 to 30 months, according to Mayor Ross Baraka. A significant change from what city officials had estimated would take 10 years to complete. That's closer to the estimate we got. We were told 7 to 8. I believe it's going to take about 7. The way progress is going, some people say it might take 5. That's all a waiting game. We don't know. A lot of things that can come into play. Weather is a big issue. You ever tried to dig in the rain? All that dirt. Not to mention the fact the big problem that we have here is the water pipe replacement has torn up a lot of people's yards, a lot of people's land, and now people are suing the city to get them to pay for the repair of their land. It's always something. Years of neglect, mismanagement, and denials have plunged Newark into one of the largest environmental crises in an American city in years, provoking anger, confusion, and frustration among its 285,000 residents. They are bigger than Flint. We had 100,000 around the time that the water crisis happened. We dropped down to 90,000 now. For obvious reasons. Yep, a lot of comparisons here. Again, right here. Says it was the same filters that we used here in Flint. And what a shock, they didn't work. Which is stated here. I want them to get into the chances that they can actually complete this construction in that amount of time. They have more lines than we do. And they expect to get it done in 3 years. In a third of the time, roughly. And here we go. Here's where the problem lies. Since the pipes are laid mostly under private property, the city cannot act unilaterally to excavate them. Residents need to request a replacement and then grant access to the city's contractors in Newark, where 70% of residents are renters. It can be difficult to track down landlords. Can talk to Jared Kushner about that. So that is going to slow things down. And they're still saying 3 years. According to fucking who? I really feel like the people of Newark are being jerked around. And it makes me sad. Because we know what that's like. The thing about Newark, though, is they're a lot more rich than us. Or wait, maybe not. Let's find out. Because theirs is 34,000. Oh. Hmm. Not bad. Nearly 30% of residents live below the poverty line. That's insane. Again, we're talking about this. It's okay. It's just poor people. They don't matter because they don't contribute to our society. They don't address whether or not 3 years is possible. That is insane. But I can tell you, they got a lot to look forward to. I'm hoping that they get the same amount of coverage that we got. I have my worries that that's going to happen because it hasn't really yet. Which blows my mind considering how close it is to such a media nexus as New York. They're right there. Why can't they go over there? They came to us. Held a presidential debate here. But, you know, I feel like their media circus is going to die down a lot like ours did, except for it's going to die down from hardly anything to nothing. This is a problem. This needs to be properly handled and properly monitored. And a good news organization would do that. It's unfortunate that we don't exactly have very many good news organizations left. But again, this is where we are. But if I could say one thing to the people of Newark, I'd say, hang on. Hang on and recognize that no help is coming. The people who are going to fix this problem are you. The people who are going to be held accountable for this is no one. You have to fix it. There is no hero coming to save you. I'm sorry that I have to deliver that news, but no one came to save us. We had that giant media circus, a lot of money invested into this, that, and the other. And it was nowhere near enough, and now, no one comes here. So what did that do? I mean, it was nice. It was good that we had the bottled water for a little while. It was great that we could put something towards the repairs. But we're still in this position where our city is seen as this like terrible thing. And that one terrible thing is the only thing that caused all of our problems. And that's what Newark is going to be remembered for. But this isn't just a Newark thing. This isn't just a Flint thing. This is happening all over the country because of decades of conservative rule where they decided to short-term gain the system. If you work everything out to be about getting to the next quarter and maximizing profit, which should not be a thing that exists in government, this is what it causes. I'm sure they made millions, billions even, off of doing this. I'm sure it looked great on the books for the time as they jumped around rather than maybe a steady incline where they brought everyone up with it. They tried to have everything with this. And it led to them having nothing, not even their water. And I know that feeling. It's fucking awful. That's why I tell them, no hero is coming. You have to fix it yourself. You have to get your shit together, get your people together to fix the problem, find the problem, take care of it. There's no one going to go to prison over this. There's no one who's going to be punished for this. There's no retribution at all. There's just you and the problem that needs to be fixed. That's where Flint's at. That's where Newark will be. You guys are going to have to deal with all the things that complicate this 3-year plan where they're going to replace all those pipes, which is insane. It's insane. And you guys are going to need to do it all. So, you have my sympathy. As I and my entire city know where you're coming from. So, the only other thing that I would say you guys need to do is stop voting for people who talk about saving money on the budget, cutting the budget. Oh, we're going to trim this fat. You know what they're talking about? Infrastructure. You know what infrastructure is? That's exactly what caused this water problem. No investment in the infrastructure. They didn't even bother to do it. That costs a lot of money then, even if it saves a ton of money later. Right? Same thing that I've been saying about Flint. I tell people over and over again that they really downplay how big a fuck up this is. Because it's not like you can just fix it. You can't just go, oh, pull a lever. We fixed it. Everybody's good now. Sorry about that. We won't hit that lever again. We just had it set to lead. Sorry. It takes a long ass fucking time to replace lines in an entire city. The water delivery system for which you get your water needs to be replaced in your entire city. I know that because we're doing that now. And they're only the start. I've said for the longest time, if you ever want to know where the country is heading for its lower and middle class people, you look at Flint. Because it happens here first. We were among the first to lose all of our auto industry. We were among the first to see the dangers of the '94 crime bill and how it increased crime in the area because it increased poverty in the area. We're the first to see the lead problems. It's very similar circumstances, not exactly the same, but very similar circumstances. Do I know what's going to happen next? No. But I hope that I'm wrong and that Newark can get their pipes replaced in 3 years. I don't see how that's fucking possible. But I don't know. For example, why do I keep bringing up the likelihood that they won't be able to do that? So this story is from April of this year. On Thursday, the ACLU of Michigan and Flint water activists came together to tout the lawsuit they brought forward that's forced the state and city to dig up and replace all lead and galvanized water service lines in the city. This turned into the program Mayor Karen Weaver calls Fast Start. I have a lot of issues with Weaver. Attorneys with the ACLU say this case was not easy, but they're proud of how much progress has been made. It was unprecedented in that it is the first time that a city has been ordered to replace all of its lead and steel lines. And 3 years, while it is too long for people to wait, in many respects, it is still substantially faster than any city has ever replaced on this type of infrastructure work. So they're saying 3 years. And that's the fastest that's ever happened in a city that is much smaller than Newark, with way less people. We've never had that many people, even in our heyday. So, ACLU says there are still 7,000 lines left to be checked and possibly replaced in the city, but they do trust that the city will finish checking all of those water service lines by the end of 2019. They're going to check them. That does not include replacing. They dig them up and they find out. So there you go. Do I seriously think that it is possible for them to complete all that construction in Newark in 3 years? Fuck no. We'll be lucky if we get it done here in Flint. And that's at the fastest rate that we've already had to deal with. So let's talk about progress. Let's talk about the progress that's happened in Flint. This is a really good article from August 21st of this year, around that same time. Does Flint have clean water? Yes, but it's complicated. This is something that I try to explain to people. It both is as bad and not as bad as you hear. For example, our civilization is not falling apart in Flint. We're still very organized. In a lot of ways, we're even more organized. We could be a little bit more organized, but gotta take with the good with the bad. But we still have a number of homes that you can't drink the water, that you can't use your shower in. You can't wash your clothes, that you can't wash your dishes in. If there's only one house that has to deal with it, that is one too many. So we're talking about something that is very detrimental to the health of the entire city. Everyone needs water. So let's go on. So this has even been updated since I read it. 5 years ago, the city of Flint switched its water to the Flint River. Citizens soon complained of dirty, foul-smelling water. Doctors found evidence of high lead levels in children. Outside researchers proved the city's water, because of a lack of corrosion control, was corroding pipes. Bacteria levels rocketed, and thousands of people were without clean water. That began 5 years ago. Now many people still say that Flint, Michigan doesn't have clean water. Some examples. Melissa Milano. The problem is those claims are misleading. To an extent. As a city, Flint's lead levels have tested well below the federal action level of 15 parts per billion since 2017. The latest test results from January 2018 found 4 parts per billion in the 90th percentile of the highest risk homes. For comparison, at the height of the crisis, those homes were testing at 20 parts per billion on average. As a result of the crisis, Flint's drinking water system has become one of the most closely monitored in the country, and a new lead and copper rule means that Michigan now has the strictest water standard in the nation. Imagine that. At this point, Flint's lead levels are better than some other Michigan cities. Over the last 2 years, Benton Harbor, which by the way was another city that was taken over, it was the first city taken over by emergency financial manager. They fucking ruined Benton Harbor. And then they did it here. Romulus, Hamtramck, Parchment, Houghton, and the villages of Lawrence and Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills surprises me. It's Beverly Hills. It's like California's Beverly Hills. A lot of rich people there. Richest city in our state is Birmingham. Beverly Hills is like kitty corner to it. Each exceeded the EPA action level for lead in drinking water, according to the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. Michigan also now has the toughest drinking water standards in the country and requires vigorous testing. That doesn't mean there still aren't problems in Flint. We'll see what they address in this, because I have some things to add. Definitely. The city switched back to the Detroit water system in 2015, but the damage had already been done, and the city's lead service lines continued to leach lead into residents' drinking water. Since 2016, crews have inspected more than 20,000 service lines, replacing roughly 8,000 lead and galvanized pipes. By the time the work is done, nearly every line in the city will have been inspected or replaced. Until the replacement work is finished, people have been advised to continue using water filters provided by the government. However, that recommendation is not unique to Flint. The EPA recommends that water filters be used in homes that could have lead lines, which applies to many cities in the U.S. cities, which applies to many U.S. cities. Excuse me. Learn how to find out if your home has lead lines here. There have also been bureaucratic complications. In August 2019, the state of Michigan warned city officials that Flint was in violation of the Safe Drinking Water Act because it failed to test water at enough homes with lead service lines or lead plumbing fixtures. A spokeswoman for the city told MLive that Flint officials say that it is because the state did not provide the city with the final approved sampling methods in time. Flint was required to test water for a minimum of 60 high-risk homes from January to July 2019. That's still less. Oh, thanks, babe.
Twitch Unity.
They're still being approved. Well, the one is still being approved. I'm working on getting some other ones. But thanks for the sub, love. You like that? Okay, I gotta get back to this. I'm recording all this. Okay. But as the city works to replace lead service lines, there are fewer and fewer homes that meet that standard. The city submitted 35 valid tests and 30 invalid sample results. But those tests were invalid because the samples were either taken from a home's lead service line, taken after a home's lead service line had been replaced, or before excavation showed the service line to be copper. And this is where, yes, we remain very skeptical, for good reason. Despite assurances from government officials and outside experts, many of Flint's residents will not drink the water. Their skepticism isn't without justification. When the crisis began, state and federal officials repeatedly denied that there was any issue with the water, despite clear evidence that there was. Later, officials manipulated test results, downplayed the problem, and lied to residents. As Michigan Radio's Lindsay Smith reported, the tests were bad enough that in July 2015, they should have informed the public about the broad lead risk, but that's not what happened. Instead, state and city officials kept telling residents there was no lead problem in Flint's water, that this EPA report was wrong, that the report was written by a, quote, rogue employee. All this is 110% true. The consequences of the crisis are ongoing. It is still unclear how much the high lead levels affected children's mental development. The Legionnaire's disease outbreak that coincided with the crisis led to 12 deaths. Imagine that. And residents say they are still fearful of bacteria in the water, although levels are largely back to normal. Like I said, just a month ago we had a filtered water boil advisory because of another water main break, which is then happening a lot. It's so fun to have to constantly watch your phone on Facebook to see if there's going to be an update from one news source that hopefully pops up in your timeline to find out, hey, can I drink my fucking water when I get home? I don't know. Let's roll the dice. It's pretty good. Because of their concerns, many Flint residents still rely on bottled water donations. The state ended free distribution last year. For the people of Flint, it may be years before the water crisis is a memory. Left out of this article, as what I talked about earlier, the hot water is not being tested. Think of what a hot water heater is. I'm going to say this again. It's a giant tube that fills up with water and it heats up, and that's how you get your hot water. So, imagine if that has lead or anything in it. All of that sediment will float to the bottom. Because you can't boil lead or copper out of your water. What happens is it sinks. It separates. You'll see it, but it's still in there. It's still bad for you. So, of course we don't trust the water. Of course we don't trust the government right now. We were lied to for years, told that we were crazy, gaslit the fuck out of. Newark dealing with the same thing, but, well, their vicinity to larger cities and the fact that they are a larger city usually means that they'll get it fixed a lot faster. So, I don't know. But that's essentially the update right now. Because, what I keep saying is, this leaves out a lot. And we're still testing fewer homes than what is being tested in Newark. Over a longer period of time, too. So, while our standards are high right now, they aren't high enough. Why? Because we're talking about fucking water. We're talking about something that we take for granted, that a lot of places take for granted every goddamn day. Think of how much you use your water. How much water you consume every day. Every time you flush a toilet. Every time you wash your clothes. Every time you wash your dishes. What's cleaning it? Imagine that coming back to bite you in the ass because of something completely out of your control. So of course we don't fucking trust the government right now. They fucked it up in the first place. So we're going to be very skeptical of what they're telling us because there's a lot of good reasons to be, because they still will not address our concerns. And they're very valid concerns. But we're going to be continued to be told again, nope. Still crazy. Still don't know what we're talking about. We were right the last time, but that was a fluke. Yeah. Just like the residents in Newark. And this is going to happen all over the country. We've already found out that there are a lot of places where it already is happening and has been happening. And we just happen to get the attention because of the huge cover-up and how it all went down. Think of this story. The state government decides to basically usurp a mayor and make decisions that destroys an entire water system to 90,000 residents. That's quite a story. Then, the pipes were just old and we did nothing about it because that's expensive and fuck us. Hi, Link. Welcome. I'm just finishing up my segment about the Newark and Flint water crisis. Thank you. It's fake. No, but I do talk about news. Yeah, I live in Flint. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to cover with this. But yeah, we're gonna be dealing with this for a little bit longer, and the people of Newark are gonna be dealing with this for a long time, longer than 3 years. I mean, there's no you don't need to feel sorry for me. I appreciate the sentiment, but no, it's kind of what I'm talking about right now. You know, but I'm gonna keep repeating it to Newark. No one is gonna come and save you. No one came and saved us. You have to take care of yourself. All right, and that's our segment.